Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining us on this cycle of online talks for PyCon Latam 2020. And today we are having Carol Willing as a very special guest for this interview. And I have also the pleasure to announce you that she's gonna be one of our keynote speakers in PyCon Latam in the next year. So that's awesome. We didn't say the notice till now. So I'm very glad to interview you. I have followed you a long time ago, and it's really nice to talk to you. Carol,
It's
so
an
welcome.
Thank you, and it's an absolute pleasure. I'm very sad that I'm missing PyLatam because of the virus this year, but I am so looking forward to it next year, and as well as our chat today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And my name is Valerie Calderon, and I'm one of the co-organizers of PyCon Latam. So we're starting some questions for you, so we can know you better. We can let the expectative of the community for the next year. So I'm gonna start asking you. Can you please tell us which are some of the projects in the Python community that you are working on right now? I know there are a lot because you contribute a lot in the coding projects, but could you tell us like the most important ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, okay, so there's PyLadies, which is very important, and I love mentoring the technical work that's being done on the websites and this whole new global initiative. So that's really important to me. In it as well, Core Python and the dev guide that goes with Core Python is also something I work on as both a core developer and also as a steering council member. And one of the most favorite things that I have had the pleasure to work on in my career is the Jupyter notebooks. And I've done a lot of work with the notebooks as well as Jupyter Hub and Binder, which is mybinder.org, which lets people share notebooks with a group of folks. So it's often used in academia for teaching, but also for user groups that are teaching groups of people so that they don't have to install everything locally on a laptop. And one of the nice things about Binder is I'm actually mentoring a couple of women now, and we use it for their weekly lessons. So it's a lot of fun. So those are the really big ones. The rest of them, you know, I just love to let people create their dreams, and if there's something I can help with, I'm happy to do that. So
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Jupyter Notebooks have been such an important tool in the data science and data analysis area because it facilitates people to work with their investigations, their research, and in general data science. I see people in Latin America using it a lot, and you don't know how much it has helped them. So it's
that
awesome.
that's great to know. And I think, the one thing about Jupyter Notebooks, we often hear it with data science, but it's such a great tool for explaining things to people. When I first got involved with using the notebooks, I was actually in San Diego working at a community makerspace, and I would be working with it in the lab, and folks would come up and they're like, "Hey, what's that?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's a different way of programming." And they're like, "Oh, I've never been good at programming." And they're like, "But this looks understandable." And I think there's something about the mix of the prose with the code, with visualizations, with sliders and things, widgets that let you interact with it, that makes that learning experience so much richer. And makes it so that you can understand more complicated topics faster. So it's something that is really near and dear to my heart, and it makes me happy whenever I hear that folks are using it and getting value out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And as you say, even not only for data scientists, I have some partners on the company that use it, being financial,
Mm-hmm.
the people in financial area use it, even if they don't know anything about Python. It's the entry point to start programming something, because they know that's easier to do the analysis, and also to get the results, the visualization of what are they doing and everything. So
Yeah, that's great. And, spreadsheets are great as well. But one of the things that was always hard for me with spreadsheets is the the functions and calculations are somewhat hidden. And I think in the notebook, it's much more transparent what's happening with your financial calculations. So it's a nice added benefit.
Sure. And now that we are talking about the Jupyter Notebooks project, I would like to know if there are some near objectives for the Jupyter Notebooks project, or maybe long time objectives, that things that we still don't know. I don't know, something in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff going on, and the project has grown so much since I joined the project in 2014. And I would say there's a lot of activity around Jupyter Lab, which is more the multi-windowed notebook and experience. So it's like the newer version of Jupyter versus the classic notebook. But I just saw some great presentations about how to use it with dashboards and how to save code snippets. So you have a library of code snippets and you can just drag and drop and pull them in. And yeah, and so I think, there's a lot of powerful stuff being done. And, on Jupyter Hub and Binder, we are continuously trying to improve it so that the experience for people who are using it online gets richer and richer. One of the things we've done with Binder, which is the service that we use to offer notebooks free, hosted, and is often used when people are teaching tutorials, it uses Docker containers. And so it takes a while for those Docker containers to start up. So one of the things we're looking at is, okay, we're always looking at how can we decrease the amount of time it takes for somebody's container to come up. Another thing that we've been really fortunate to do, because it's a free service and it's a service run by a nonprofit, we don't have huge financial resources. So we kind of make do with what we can get. And in the last year or so, we've partnered with several institutions like the Turing and GESIS and OVH, so that we can have a federated model for compute, which is great because we now have other people contributing the computing resources, but also moving the computing resources closer to people as well, which helps a little bit with some of the latency on connections and things. But I think the other thing that's really awesome, and it's not directly in the Jupyter community, but some of the work that's being done with visualizations is just amazing. The ability to do like 3D visualizations and more creative, whether it's IPyVolume or Matplotlib, there's just more and more stuff that is getting out into people's hands, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a really huge amount of tools to build things.
Yeah.
Awesome. And also, I think a topic that I would like to touch is the translation of the documentation on Jupyter Notebooks. I helped a little bit on translating. I think it was still a little bit reminding. I would like to tell the community this. Do you know the state of the translation? I think
I don't. Damian Avila probably knows better than I do, but you know, the translation is very important to us. The problem is there's only so many Jupyter core developers. We're sort of limited in time. So, you know, if folks want to get involved, either doing translation or organizing some of the translations, we would be thrilled about that, because I think it's really important, both for Jupyter stuff as well as for Python. So.
sure. So I contributed a little bit on translation of Jupyter Notebooks, and it's already a platform like easy to use on
Oh,
the
nice.
translation. So you just like you register, and then they give you access. You know, you have to speak on the issues on GitHub, and they give you access to this platform, and you just use the software that it's already built to translate things,
Mm-hmm.
and it automatically makes the pull requests to
Wow.
update the documents. So it's really good. It's really easy. So people, please help us out to
Yeah.
translate to
We
Spanish.
should have you write a blog post or something about it
That's
for the
true.
Jupyter website, because I don't know that everyone knows that. I certainly didn't know that it was that straightforward a process. And, you know, it'd be a great thing maybe to sprint on as well, you
Sure.
know, in future events. So definitely reach back out to me, and we can talk about what would be a good blog post.
Awesome. I will, because yeah, I see that there is some pushing power to translate the Python documentation to
Right.
Spanish also. And
Yes.
I have seen it also, like right now for PyLadies. I also help to
Yes.
translate,
Yes.
and it was like really good. It's translated to like 6 languages,
Mm-hmm.
the election site and the registration and everything. So that's awesome. But yeah, I think Jupyter Notebooks also it has a really good user interface to translate. So let's
Yeah.
just tell people that they can do it.
Yes, and Fernando Perez, who is one of the original founders of the Jupyter project and IPython, you know, he's originally from Colombia. And
Yeah,
so he's very, you know, he would be thrilled if, you know, everything was translated. So you would definitely have support from him
for
in
sure.
doing so.
Yeah, I heard him keynote speaking in PyCon Colombia this year in
Nice.
February, and then yeah,
Yes.
it was awesome, very inspiring a keynote. So
Yeah, he
awesome.
is a really wonderful man, and you know, takes things to heart. And you know, his story is a great story, but we don't have time for that now. But I'm glad you got to
Yeah,
see him in
for sure
person.
we will invite him
Yeah.
to the next PyCon. Okay, so another topic that I would like to talk about is about the Python Software Foundation, and
Hmm.
you as a former director,
Correct.
I would like to know, like, which do you think that are the main topics or the main objectives for the Python Software Foundation in the nearest future?
Yeah. So um, anything that the Python Software Foundation does has to fulfill the mission of improving the language and spreading the language globally. So, you know, obviously one important thing that will always be important is raising funds so that we can use them for grants that help folks run local events and seed money for new conferences. So that's definitely one thing. It'll be interesting because each set of boards tend to focus on different things based on what's important at the time. And Lorena is so passionate about so many things. I'm not sure what's going to be on the top of her agenda, but I know globalization and you know, how we build a healthy global community within Python is really important to her. And as is things like code of conduct and the ability for people to use the tools. And so it's a lot of behind the scenes work sometimes, but you know, I feel really good about her being the steward for this upcoming year.
Awesome. And also these past days, well, in the election days on the Python Software Foundation, in the last board directors election, there
Yes.
was a little bit like, you know, movement or there was
controversy.
Yeah, kind of, or noise around the reforming the elections. What do you think about it?
You know, I have long, like when I was a board member, one of the things I proposed was that we slightly expand the size of the board and have a representative from each of the major geographic areas, like continent-wide. Because I think, you know, it's important, because as I've traveled the world and talked about Python and seen what people are doing all over, it's amazing what people do locally, and having those voices feed back into the board, I think, is very healthy. Now, whether it should be long-term part of the board itself, or maybe, you know, there needs to be an advisory board that has regional representation. I don't know the best way of doing it. The smarter minds than mine will figure that out. But I think, you know, we have such tremendous people in the community that it feels a little bit like there's got to be a better way to utilize the thoughts and the ideas and the skill sets that people around the world bring. And I think sometimes, not always in elections, but sometimes in elections, it's a matter of like, who knows who the most of the voting members. And, you know, definitely encourage people to join the Python Software Foundation from your region, because that will give you greater representation. But yeah, I looked at the slate of candidates that were in this last election, and I was really humbled by how fantastic pretty much everyone was. So.
Awesome. Yeah, actually really difficult, I mean, to choose who, or, well, you know, you have to the ability to choose multiple
Right
now. So it's not that difficult. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you choose everybody, then everybody will stay. So it's kind of confusing, that part.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
really
know,
difficult.
it is difficult. And I think, you know, the other thing that's really important, like people, you know, want to be part of the foundation, but the board is only one small part of it. Work groups like the grant work groups are equally as important because they are doing huge chunks of business for the Python Software Foundation, like making sure the grant process is running smoothly, reviewing the grants. You know, we've had other work groups in the past that worked on diversity and improving diversity in, PyCon talk acceptances. And so, you know, there's always a way to contribute. And sometimes I think, like, you know, it's a blessing in disguise, because you have the, like when I was on the board, I had to actually give up a lot of the local work that I was doing in San Diego just because of the time commitment for the board. And I really missed like doing the outreach and the one-on-one stuff that I had done before. So I'm very glad that I served on the board, but I think, you know, I think a combination of improving the election process or making global representation more inclusive would be great for strengthening the organization as a whole. But don't let that stop you from, you know, creating whatever it is you think would be awesome for Python.
Yeah, I totally agree on that, because it doesn't, to not be in the board doesn't mean that you cannot do things, you know, because also the effort and the power you build in the local community can be supported by the Python Software Foundation, even if you're not on the board. I mean, if some organizer is not on the board, so I think that's totally true. Yeah.
And I also think, I mean, personally for me, I know my local user group in San Diego and Tijuana were much more important for me learning Python and getting involved with Python. So that like strong local group where you can actually, well, pre-COVID, that you could actually see people on a regular basis and meet is really, there's something really special about that. And not every language community has that, but I'm always amazed at how friendly and warm and helpful the different local communities are around the world with Python. So sort of like take care of your, like what's in your backyard first, and then work on the global stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I totally agree on that too, because I have been in some, well, when I just kind of knew about the Python Software Foundation years ago, I went to a PyCon on Spain, and I didn't know anybody, like anybody.
Wow.
And I was there like alone, you know, introvert, didn't know anybody. and then I start talking to, I think there was Naomi there, and I started talking to her and the other girls. And then I start making friends and talking to everybody, and the community was so welcoming that I was like, wow, I want to repeat this. And I did, and I engaged with the community because it was so awesome to meet new people that was so nice to me, you know, people that didn't know me at all.
Right. And I think that's something that's really special in the Python community, is how many people value learning and education, and that ability to teach people and share with people your knowledge. I think it helps to have, you know, when Guido first started the language, he constructed it in a way that would make it easier for people to read and understand, which was different than a lot of languages at the time. And so I think Python's somewhat unique in the fact that the community embraces that side of things so strongly. So I think it's great that you've done all the work locally, because it, you know, you look back 4 years down the road and you're going to be like, oh, look at all these things that we've helped people achieve. And it's just really a pretty special thing to be able to do.
Yes, for sure. And talking about the community a little bit, do you have a special memory about the community that you would like to share with us?
Wow, there are so many. Wow. You know, I think some of my favorite memories, when I first started with the Python community, I was working with a nonprofit called Open Hatch that helped people contribute their first contribution to open source software. And in the Jessica McKellar and Ashish Larora and Alana Hashman and Shauna Gordon McKeon, we all worked very closely together for a couple of years. And being at the PyCon sprints, you know, it's intimidating. Like you said, if you're a new person and you don't know anyone, or if you're new to Python or newer to Python or the tools like Git and GitHub, it can be really intimidating to join the sprints. And Naomi Cedar had started a, you know, like introduction to the sprints kind of evening before the sprints. And that was really useful because it helped people who were new to sprinting have some friendly faces that they could ask questions of the next day, and it wouldn't seem as scary or intimidating. And I love helping folks, like, you know, even like set up their system with Git and really walk them through step by step. And it was, one PyCon memory that I have is with Leticia Portela, who is from Brazil. And I met her at the first day of one of the PyCons, and she was sitting with another guy, was at a table next to her in front of the coffee shop. And I was racing around making sure everything was okay for tutorials. And I was like, hey, you both look like you're new. Is this your first time? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, great, introduce yourselves because you have something in common. And they did. And then, you know, I wound up working with her on the sprints. Well, several years later, she actually wound up working on the Jupyter Hub project.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, she's an amazing person. She's got her own podcast and things like that. But just to know that you had even a small bit of help or influence on somebody not giving up or sticking with it is really, it's humbling. And you know, I feel like I've gotten so much from the community that is just priceless to me, that far more than I've ever put into the community. So, you know, I think it's just, everybody has to kind of do it their way, but I think there's only what time and imagination is limited to getting things done. And, you know, it's great to see like Django Girls. I was there when some of the early ones, and to see it now and see women in San Diego who took some of the first Django Girls workshops now working and mentoring. It's just really great to see. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel the same. You know, the Python community, I owe so much to the Python community because I feel I have learned a lot. I have feel welcome. I have feel part of. So I just want to retrieve all these.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes us healthy as a community, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And about contributions, what do you think that are the biggest challenges as a Python core developer or Jupyter Notebook core developer?
Yeah, I mean, they're very different projects. I think Python core development, what's challenging is, you know, languages need to be stable and have a certain level of quality because so many businesses and infrastructure relies on it. So the pace of change in those in a project like Python or another major language like C++ or something, is relatively slow compared to what's happening in the sciences and data science, where it feels a little bit like every day there's something new coming out. And it takes a while with Python to understand the workflow of, how to even find an issue to work on. And, I think Marietta has done a great job building some tooling to make the workflows easier. We spent a lot of time improving the dev guide. There's now a triage team that has been actually pretty successful in helping people go from just starting to dabble in core Python to seeing if it's something that interests them, and later getting mentored to become a core developer. Now, on the other hand, Jupyter moves a lot quicker, and there's a lot more sub-projects within Jupyter. So like, if you look at the Jupyter discourse site, you'll find lots of people doing all different kinds of things, and we always need more help. So, I would encourage anybody who wants to work on open source within Jupyter to like introduce yourself on the discourse list, figure out which projects that you like, whether it's NB Convert or the classic notebook, or NB Grader for people who are using it in teaching. It's endless, or at least it feels that way.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of start somewhere, whether it's a sprint or an introduction. And it's a little harder with Python core to like introduce yourself to everyone, but we're trying to make the community as welcoming as possible, and to maintain the quality of the language while also giving people opportunities to work within the language.
I see. So I understand it a little bit like working on the Python core is more like decisions before coding, right? And in working on the Jupyter Notebook project, it will be more like there are many things to do. I mean, like
right,
new features, and you just have to work on it. And
right, and it just the pace is just different. There's a lot more of the, oh my gosh, let me try this. Let's see what this happens. Oh, great, let's do that. And smaller teams within the larger group. So it's a little easier, I think, to get started. Probably because it's a newer project, really.
I see. I understand. Okay, that's awesome. And also, we know that you were awarded with the Frank Wilson Award in 2019, and we would like to congratulate you. And please tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, thank you. And it was a surprise and a great honor to receive the Frank Wilson Award. When I look at people who had received it before, like Brett Cannon, who has given so much to the Python community, I was really honored to be included in that group. But it's an award that's given not only for technical achievements, but also for having a strong impact on the community. So some of it was for my work that I've done within core Python. Some of it was the work that I've done in the Python Software Foundation and helping improve like code of conduct and the committee around that. And some of it was Jupyter and just the general the outreach that I love doing and sharing Python with folks.
Awesome. Well, that's really nice. And I mean, we could talk whole day about many topics in the Python community and the contributions on open source, but the time is limited. So
Yes.
we are gonna take the rest of the information for the next PyCon Latam the next year.
Wow. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Right now, actually, these days, it was gonna be the date of the PyCon Latam
Right.
event, just right now, like today.
I know, it was in my calendar still. I hadn't moved it out of my calendar.
Yeah, so I think I will, I don't know, take some drink that makes me feel in the beach or something, because
Yeah.
I cannot be there right now. But yeah, so it's awesome to have you here, and it will be awesome to have you also next year in PyCon Latam. Thank you so much for this interview, and talk to you soon.
Yes, it's been my pleasure, and go have fun, celebrate all of your achievements, and I can't wait to see you guys next year.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much.